Washington football team fans, excuse me, I do that every time. Washington Commander fans, what is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Bleeding BnG podcast. We finally made it to episode 50, and for episode 50, I have a special guest. I have super producer from the Team 980, formerly of the Travis Thomas Show. I guess I got to ask him of his future endeavors. I ain't heard him on the airwaves in the last couple of days, but my guy, Anthony Haynie from the Team 980. How you doing, my guy?
I'm good, man. Definitely a pleasure to be on the podcast. And yeah, my future is up in the air. I guess in terms of like what show I'll be doing. But yeah, I haven't been on the airways too much. I'm gonna fix them. I'm gonna get back on the airways. So just be listening out.
Got to. Because like I've been saying, we have a lot of things in common just listening to you on other podcasts and things like that. So how old are you?
25.
So we're about the same age range. I'm 26. You graduated what, class of 2014, I'm guessing?
Yes, sir.
And then I graduated 2013, but I also have my my undergrad degree in broadcast journalism. And it's not too crazy to meet anybody from your field, but I picked up the teaching field. But how did that go? How did you fall into, becoming the super producer that you are on Team 980? Take us through your experience going to Syracuse, being a broadcast journalism major. That was actually my dream school. So like I said, man, I'm living vicariously through you. So tell me how that went. Tell me how that go.
I ain't gonna lie though. So I graduated Syracuse and I ain't necessarily have a job coming out of college. It is definitely tough to land a gig in like the sports field. I feel like coming out of Newhouse, you can definitely get something in the hard news. You go to a smaller city, but I'm from DC. I wanted to come back home, and I had trouble at first trying to find anything sports related for real. So I started out actually working at Morgan Stanley, and I was an intern there. And finance not my thing, so I had to get out of there. And fortunately for me, the guy that I was interning under, he knew the program director at Team 980, the old program director, because we got a new one. And that's literally how I got my foot in the door. And when I was over there, I was a board op at first. So really I was just coming in at night, 7 to 11, watching the board. We had Orioles games on. Sometimes we had Wizards games on, things of that nature. I wasn't really doing anything, just making sure we were on the air. And I was actually working as a substitute teacher because I'm like, I had to make ends meet. The board op and stuff wasn't, paying the bills. So I had to, I was in your, where you were, where you are right now in the classroom. I was doing that for about 5-6 months just to end the school year. And then when the summer hit, I got like more involved like with the day-to-day business of Team 980. So I started writing more. I got to cover training camp down in Richmond. Basically, I was applying like the stuff I learned at Syracuse to, my everyday job at 980. And that's literally how I just, got the ball rolling at 980 and how I got like more involved. I just asked, could I write some articles? Could I do video here? Could I, break down whatever Doc and Galdi are doing, like do some mini video series and things of that nature. So I was doing literally everything that I had learned at 980. And then, the pandemic hit, so they fired our full-time producer. So I guess if you want to call it luck, I guess you could call it luck, but I essentially like stepped in and I was part-time. The hours were terrible. I'm not going to lie. I was in there from like 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. some days, or like, 9 a.m. to 6 or 7 p.m. I was doing like 3 shows a day as a part-time worker. So I guess like I was rewarded for, my service in that manner. But it definitely was some long, tedious hours during that whole COVID situation. And then I got promoted to full-time producer and working with Travis. And me and Travis in the 14 months we had.
That show was rocking, man. That's one of my favorite shows.
I'm trying to tell you.
Man. You know how it go.
We needed a show for real. Like Travis kept on advocating for it. Never came to fruition, but definitely Travis's presence, not only like on the radio waves, but around the office, all that's gonna be missed.
Absolutely. I actually did an episode with Travis. He was actually on episode 30, and this is crazy. This is all coming full circle. He's gonna be so mad because he told me to bring him in for episode 50. So it's crazy that his super producer he dipped out on me. He dipped out on me. I couldn't book him. Yeah. So it's crazy that his super producer actually filled in the spot that he was supposed to be in. But really quickly, when they fired all those guys during COVID, you were in there working with Jeff, right?
Yeah, Jeff. You know Jeff?
I know Jeff. Me and Jeff graduated together. We went to school together at Bowie State.
Jeff, man, them hours were something serious. Like we barely had days off for real.
Trust me, I know. I remember you'd be like, I'm sleeping in my car for a couple hours. I'm like, hey, get it though, because I love seeing young Black men on the airwaves. Like I said, I'm living vicariously through y'all. I had to get in that teaching field a little early, had to make ends meet, but definitely I'm still pursuing that passion. When did you decide that you wanted to work in sports and things like that?
Mainly probably when I was in high school. So in high school, I played basketball. I used to play football like when I was a kid. I got to prep and they kept looking at my size. Like I was like 4'11", 5 feet. But I'm like, I played pop one of football. I was always the smallest on the field. Played safety, played corner, but guess what? You gotta learn how to hit. You gotta strike. You can't be out there scared. So I got up here. I'm cooking these dudes like in practice, like anytime we went live, I'm cooking them. But politics play its way in like everything up here. So I wasn't fortunate enough to make first or second string. So I was third string, and I was like, man, I'm about to just play basketball. So I ended up quitting the football team, becoming a manager of the football team and a lacrosse team. And I was making money being a manager. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do this. So like I would probably say in high school, like sports is really all I've known. I get in debates and arguments with my dad all the time. So I think I was really like just cut out to, dabble in sports, whether it's a reporter, whether I'm a freaking co-host, a producer, a sports reporter, like on TV, some sports related. So that's what I've been pursuing.
Sound like we live in the same life, man. You played lacrosse too? You was just a manager?
Nah, I was just out there filming.
Football and lacrosse was the two sports I played in high school. I was about to say, hey, another one. But let's get into some Washington Commanders talk. So I know the running joke on the show was that you adopted all the LA teams and things like that, but I always thought that was a running joke. So you actually grew up a Washington fan, right?
Yeah, I grew up a Washington fan, but I've admired what the LA Rams have done with their team. And from the beginning of the season, they've been my Super Bowl favorite, and they went on to, win the Super Bowl. And I always thought they had what it took to win the Super Bowl.
Extreme foresight. So like I say, this is one of my running jokes when I'm like dating and stuff like that. I tell the girls, I'm like, I'm loyal because I've been loyal to the Washington Commanders for 26 years. So what keeps you being, other than, having to cover the team because you wasn't doing that all your life, what keeps you being a Washington Commander fan?
I grew up from here, man. Like, I'm a diehard. No matter how bad we are, I'm always going, root for the home team. When we're good, you're gonna hear me. When we suck, I might be cracking a few jokes, but I'm never gonna like fold on my team. Like that's everything. Every team in the DC area is my team. Whether it's DC United, the Washington Spirit, the Nationals, the Capitals. Even if I don't really watch your sport in particular, I'm still a fan of yours.
Oh, yeah, that's why they call you the pride of Southeast. Another thing, I'm from Southeast as well. What part of Southeast did you grow up in?
I grew up in Benham Park.
Okay. I grew up in Hillcrest. I went to school at Orem, Minnesota Avenue. So like I said, man, we live in the same life. But yeah, I feel the same way, man, just growing up here. And since we're from around near the same area, do you remember it was like a sense of pride, even though we weren't that good? It was a sense of pride growing up in like the Sean Taylor era. I used to see so many Washington Redskin at the time jerseys and stuff like that at the liquor store. Growing up, that's all we knew. That's everything that's around that area. And it seems like just, the fan participation, the fan engagement has just disintegrated. Just speak on that, because I know being from the same area, the sense of pride we have being Washington Redskin fans from that area.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm not sure if it's this new generation of kids that's under us. And maybe that was us when we were kids, but we probably didn't like necessarily see it. Because like my brothers, they Cowboys fans, or one of my brothers, he an Eagles fan. But like just seeing like the adults, I guess like the aunts and uncles and things of that nature, they always rep Washington DC no matter what. Yes. But also they grew up during those glory days. So I think it hits harder or hits home for them because they actually were alive to see Washington Redskins win Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't necessarily seen that in our 25, 26 years on this earth. So I understand why some people have, parted ways and become fans of other teams. But I guess it started when we were younger because our brothers, our cousins, they grew up rooting for other teams, not necessarily the Washington Redskins or the Commanders.
Nah, for sure. So we've been talking about 20 years ago and things like that. So let me ask you, what you think went wrong with the 2021 Washington football team at the time?
Last year, definitely inconsistent quarterback play. You got to start there. We've been on this quarterback carousel ever since Kirk Cousins. Well, we didn't re-sign Kirk Cousins. And if listening to the Team 980, I'm a big Kirk Cousins fan. And it's not necessarily I think Kirk Cousins would have got us to the Super Bowl, but I just think we would just have more stability at the position. And as long as you can, put talent around that average QB, if you want to, call them, I think we would have been able to compete. We wouldn't necessarily be having losing season after losing season and things of that nature. So it definitely got to start out with the QB play. We brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick to, help us in a sense at that position. He got hurt. So Taylor Heineke was forced to play. And, in my eyes, he's a viable backup. That's what he is. That's what he's probably always going to be. So I would say inconsistent quarterback play. The defense, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, that defensive line, they have so many high expectations placed upon them, and they sort of let us down. But it's not all their fault. I will also blame Jack Del Rio. I think he got complacent off of the 2020 success that the defense had and just relying on that front four to, apply all the pressure. Now you got to be able to switch it up. And he failed to, make changes, make adjustments, little things like moving Landon Collins from safety to box linebacker or, shuffling the D-line, sending different blitzes, things of that nature. I think he just struggled to make those adjustments. So I would definitely say QB1, defense 2, and then 3 injuries, COVID. I feel like after the beginning to the season, we had like a nice 4-game win streak, but then those injuries, the COVID outbreak, that definitely derailed us and ultimately like hurt our chance to, make a playoff push. So I would necessarily say those 3 things were a big reason we had a not so successful 2021 season.
Definitely. And I agree with all the points as well. I think that we were fooling ourselves even from the jump, thinking that a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to take us to the promised land. Like, yeah, he has his games, but this is a guy who is a journeyman throughout his 14-year career. So, I mean, he's shown you his track record. No matter what you wanted to believe, he's shown you his track record. And I also think that not only us as fans fooled ourselves, but I think the team fooled themselves as well. I honestly think that we thought that we were going to be playing with a lead a lot this season. And we thought we were going to be able to pin his ears back and just rush the passer, like you said, sending them forward and, playing with a lead. But we barely played with a lead throughout the season. So if the team philosophy isn't matching, and you saw it, you saw how it played out. But COVID and injuries and things like that, I don't want to make excuses because everybody did have it, but we were ravaged, but we were ravaged by it. It was crazy.
That the start February, I want to say like 3 straight weeks, we just derailed by COVID outbreak. Like 1 week was D-line, the next week offensive players, the following week maybe some coaches. Like it just didn't make sense. The math was not mathing. And also, people failed to realize we had a tough schedule last year. We had some tough teams to face. And to put all of our divisional games at the end of the season also hurt because people know how tough divisional games are. So you already have a tough regular season. Then you got to face your entire division at the end of the season. That's an uphill battle.
It's an uphill battle for sure. So let's leave that in the past. Let's go on now with the Washington football team. We're going to leave that there. Tell me how you feel about this 2022 offseason, bringing in Carson Wentz. It ain't really much to talk about free agency because it seems like we only bringing in Carolina Panther dudes or dudes that know Ron Rivera. But tell me how you feel. I have my thoughts on it. I've expressed my thoughts on previous episodes, but now you had a floor. Let me know how you've been feeling about this offseason. Let's start with Carson Wentz. All
right, we can definitely start with Carson Wentz. Again, putting $28 million into a guy that is marginally better than Taylor Heineke did not make the most sense to me. I think they should have, played the waiting game, allowed those three extra days to go by for the coach to release them, because they were going to release them. They were not going to keep Carson Wentz and take that cap hit. So they would have had a dead cap hit, but it wouldn't have been as much as Carson Wentz's contract is worth. So I think we fooled ourselves just putting so much money into Carson Wentz, because again, if we had waited, we would have had more cap space. We would have been able to do more. We probably would have been able to bring in an upgrade at safety like a Tyrann Mathieu, or we would have been able to go out there and get another lineman, or I don't know. We want to get Bobby Wagner. I don't think we would have had the money for him.
Absolutely not.
But we would have been able to get some other free agent acquisitions. But instead, we invested so much money in Carson. So he's going to have to, live up to that contract. And that's really all I can hope for right now. I dwelled on the past for a long time. Now I've just come around to accepting Carson. That's our quarterback. I got to get with the program. And now I just got to be optimistic that, he has a connection with Terry McLaurin. He hasn't had a true number one in, a very long time. I want to say Deshaun Jackson probably was his last true number one receiver. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does with Terry. We also got some big body receivers, De'Ami Brown, Cam Sims, Logan Thomas. I think people are really sleeping on Logan Thomas. I think he's going to have another great season to build off the season he had 2 years ago. But I think those big body playmakers are going to definitely benefit from having Carson at quarterback, just because he gives people chances. We're going to have to live and die with the interception that he's going to, throw and force. But I think for the most part, we're going to benefit from those.
And I got to ask, because I'm the self-proclaimed, president of the J.D. McKissick fan club. Okay. I caught a lot of heat early in the season because I said, and it's probably my most viral tweet. I told people, because, they got this big infatuation with Chris Thompson. I told them in August, right after the third preseason game, I said, J.D. McKissick is what we wanted Chris Thompson to be. He is. And I caught the most heat for that. Me and Travis actually talked about that. So tell me what you think about that whole J.D. McKissick Buffalo saga.
I was glad that JD, hit them with a U-turn. Bringing him back and just the impact he had on our offense. I think it's going to be weird though, bringing him back just because Carson Wentz doesn't really throw to the check down. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out. But him as a talent, and not being able to, or not having to spend too much money on him, I think that was a huge benefit for us. We get him for 2 years. What is it? His contract's worth up to $8 million or $7 million, something along those lines.
I think it's 7.5. It could go up to 8, I think.
So getting him on the cheap was huge. And just seeing what he did for our offense. Also, if Antonio Gibson struggles again like he did last year with holding on to the ball, we know that we have a trusted backup in J.D. McKissick. And also, I want to see some Patterson. Patterson get some carries. And I saw you with him actually earlier today.
Yeah, that's family. That's family. That's family.
That's real?
Family. Yeah, that's my guy. He actually is one of my brother's best friends. So I actually raised them. Not to raise them, but they used to come over the house, eat up all my snacks and stuff like that. Yeah, that's family for sure. So for everything to come full circle, yeah, today was a crazy day, definitely. But are you into the draft? Are you looking at these college prospects? How heavy are you into college football and things like that? Do you know about these prospects coming up?
Yeah, I know about them. In terms of where Washington should be looking, I'm all in on I'm a needs type of guy when it comes to the draft. So right now we got our quarterback. That was, priority number one heading into the offseason. Priority number two, linebacker. I am all in on getting a Kobe Dean or a Devin Lloyd. And
at 11? At 11?
At 11.
Okay.
At 11. And hear me out.
I'm listening.
All right. So getting a linebacker. Yes, we got Jamin. And that's why people are upset about, wanting to get a linebacker, because we took one last year. But my thing is, even though we did draft a linebacker last year, we need a Mike linebacker. We're going to keep on trying to go on plug and play. There are not that many very good middle linebackers in the league. We struggle finding those around the league. The last really good one here in Washington was London Fletcher.
And it's hard to play linebacker in the league, especially with like RPOs and things like that.
Exactly. So just having Nakobe Dean or Devin Lloyd, whichever one we would get, that would be beneficial because not only do we have a young defensive line, but we also have a young linebacking core. We have Jamin, we have whatever rookie we might draft, and Cole Holcomb is also young. On our back end, we have some people with some experience, which is good because they worked together last year, they built some chemistry, and towards the end of the season, they started to play well. So as long as we get that front seven, working together as a unit, I think it could be good for years to go down the road. That's my vision. I'm thinking, the future. I'm not thinking like just right now. I'm thinking the future, what could be from now.
I wouldn't be mad at a linebacker. And like I've said on the podcast before, and this might be heavy, but I think that it was coaching malpractice trying to force Jamin Davis to be a Mike linebacker last year. If you looked at his film from Kentucky, because we actually mocked him to Washington before the draft, so we were really keen on him. He wasn't a downhill player. He's a run and chase guy. And that's not a guy that you put in the middle of the defense, because guess what? He's going to be running away from blockers and leaving holes wide open like he was doing all season. He's a will linebacker. He's good in coverage. And, I wouldn't be mad at a linebacker. I'm looking more at a second round, like a guy like Christian Wilkins or Chad Muma. I'm not mad at that. But I hear a lot of people in the Washington Commander community leaning wide receiver. And while we're probably the hardest critic on De'Ami Brown, I'm not necessarily, like you said, I'm a needs guy. And I don't necessarily think that's our biggest need in the first round with, the talent. I don't think there's going to be a huge dip off in the, from, pick 11 to pick 47 if you do go that route in the second round. So I'm looking at a guy like Derek Stingley Jr., who blew up his combine coming off of Lisburn and blew up his pro day. You don't like my man Stingley?
I love Stingley. I think he's an exceptional talent, but I'm not willing to put all my chips in that basket just because the last 2 years he's been off the field. Yeah. Like, we bring in a guy that has struggled to, play the last 2 years. Granted, his freshman year, he was lights out, All-American.
The greatest freshman tape I've seen.
Exactly. But the thing is, we bring him here, he gets hurt. The fan base is going to go crazy. But also, we skip out on the talent. Then everybody's somewhere else. What if? So I think it's a low risk, high reward type of situation. But at the same time, I'm not willing to take a chance on like none of those guys that's like really coming off injuries. They scare me, man. I get scared when I hear people coming off injuries. I feel it. And I guess we just risk takers over here bleeding BnG. But hear me out. He allows you to play more man with like your highest investment that you've had in free agency in William Jackson. You haven't really made any big splashes this year, and he allows you to play more man because honestly, I think I'm faster than Kendall Fuller at this point. Like Kendall Fuller is so washed up. He's still a decent player because he's smart and has instincts and stuff, but the physical limitations don't allow you to play man like William Jackson want to play all day. He wants to play that. He wants to put his face mask in his chest. So to hear you say that, I like it. I like it. I wouldn't be opposed to. I see everybody thinking if they go defense, we're rioting. We're rioting. So let's say they do go wide receiver. Is there any wide receiver that you wouldn't mind seeing them take at 11? Garrett Wilson, I love. I think I like him the most. I think he's better than Chris Olave. If you looked at how Ohio State used Olave last year, yes, his route running is elite. Like, he is elite when it comes to route running, but a lot of his stuff is like down the field. I think Garrett Wilson, you can do, end arounds. I think he's more versatile in the manner in which you can use him. And Ron Rivera and Scott Turner, they like guys with position flex. So I think being able to bring Garrett Wilson in, he's like a Curtis Samuel type of guy. Like, I think, but he probably has better route running when it comes to actually making plays and things of that nature.
Absolutely. That's our wide receiver one. He's a guy that can beat you all three ways. I actually think he has a lot of like OBJ type traits, like the shiftiness, the agility. Might not be the most refined route runner, but he can get there because he's so sudden and things like that. That he's a natural talent. That's our wide receiver one. So that's great minds thinking alike again. All right, so before we let you head out, I'm going to ask you about the Washington, your prospects for the 2022 Washington season, and then I'm going to hit you with some quick hitters. But what do you think is going to happen? What do you think Washington's record going to look like? The schedule is a little easier in 2022. What do you think we're going to do with Carson Wentz leading the helm?
Leading the helm, we went 7-9 last year. To be honest, I think Carson is about 2 or 3 games better than Haynie.
Mm-hmm.
So probably on the high side, I would probably say we win 10 games. We go 10-7. Low side, we go 9-8. People sleeping on the NFC East, man. I think that NFC East is going to be super competitive. So I'm not putting us past like anybody in NFC East. But yeah, outside of our division, we do have an easier little record. So an easier schedule. So I would probably say on record 9-8.
Okay. And I lied. I got one more question before these quick hitters. What you think about this Terry McLaurin scenario, man? Or this Terry McLaurin saga? Like people are freaking out. I was one of them freaking out. So I'm like, why haven't we re-signed Terry? But then when I looked at the landscape of the NFL, nobody in the 2019 draft class has been re-signed. And I don't think Terry's in a rush because he's looking to see why should I sign with you guys? So what you think about this Terry McLaurin contract extension situation?
Terry has all the leverage in the world.
All the leverage.
Again, Terry can really wait until this season is over just to see how Washington's QB situation looks. So Terry came in 3 years ago. He's had Alex Smith. He's had Colt McCoy. He's had Dwayne Haskins. He's had Kyle Allen. He's had Taylor Heinicke, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Garrett Gilbert. He's had too many quarterbacks to name, and I probably left off some. So he's probably, upset or, he doesn't necessarily like the quarterbacking situation here in Washington. If he doesn't like it at the end of the season, he can awesomely walk. He can go get paid elsewhere. And, that market for him is going to be through the roof. So I think he has a ton of leverage. I do think, however, Washington will get a deal done, maybe sometimes towards like the middle of the summer. I think I seen JP Finley tweet something along the lines. They might be working out a deal come the summertime. But I think he's going to wait, and he's going to get that deal. And if I'm Washington, I try to do everything in my power to re-sign him before the season starts, because guess what? I'm not the most confident in Carson Wentz. So I don't think not having Terry not signed here in Washington is in our best interest, because he's going to have all the say-so to do whatever he wants if he's to go to the free agent market next year.
I agree. And if you were to sign Terry, what would them numbers look like? If you were the GM of Washington, let's put yourself in Brian Rivera and Marty Hurney's shoes. If you were the GM of Washington, what would you sign Terry to? I'm looking at like a 4-year, $96 million. They give him about $24 million per year. And I don't think he's saying no to any. I don't think he's saying yes to anything under that. So how about you?
I just seen Stephon Diggs get paid that. So I'm, ballpark in that same area, 24, 23, 24, 25, something along those lines. Just to ensure that he's going to stay here and give him a nice signing bonus as well.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. All right. So for these quick hitters, we're actually going to start with the guy that we previously mentioned, Terry McLaurin. So finish this sentence. Terry McLaurin is a top blank receiver in the NFL.
Terry McLaurin is a top 15 receiver in the
NFL. Top half of the league. That's a little spicy. I think that might be a little low. But it's
like 2 receivers per team.
Huh?
So you think it's low? I mean, if we were to really,
I would give him around the 12 to 15 range. The 12.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I mean. I only said top 15 because I don't know if he's like number 11. I don't know if he's number 12.
I got you.
I just said I love Terry. I don't think he's top 10 right now. I don't think
for sure. He need a quarterback to allow him to be top 10.
Exactly. He get the quarterback. I promise you, he's going to be top 6, top 5. Like he's going to be up there.
Definitely. All right. Chase Young will have blank amount of sacks next season because he's coming off a disappointing year. Tore his ACL pretty late in the year. I think it was week 10. So we don't know how he's going to necessarily come back. So Chase Young is going to have a blank amount of sacks next year.
10.
Okay. All right.
Well, I'm thinking at least double digits. So 10 is the bare minimum.
Gotta be to live up to the hype. Gotta be.
I mean, we call this dude a generational talent, and he had a terrible sophomore season. He had an outstanding freshman year. But if we're going to call you a generational talent, even coming off your injury, you have to live up to, that status. And he hasn't necessarily lived up to it. So we need to see him double digit at least.
Definitely. Jamin Davis will have a bounce back year in 2022. Yes or no?
Yes.
Carson Wentz will throw for how many touchdowns in 2022?
Carson Wentz will throw for 30 touchdowns this year.
Okay. So right around his total touchdown production that he had in Indy. Not mad at it. And last but not least, if the draft were today, who do you see Washington taking? Your final pick. You were turning in that card to the podium. Who is your pick for Washington at number 11? Your number one pick.
Nakobe Dean.
Nakobe Dean, University of Georgia. I'm not mad at it. You hard on this linebacker stance. I'm not mad at it because we do need it. Big needs guy.
I am indeed.
Big knees guys see. Hey, man, so that's go ahead.
I ain't gonna lie though, when you was talking about Derek Stingley, say we do draft Derek Stingley and we want to go man, where does St. Juice fit in? Is he not in the rotation? Did we waste a third round pick on Juice?
So I actually think that Juice can play man. Like he has the physical capabilities. I think in that scenario, you would kick Juice outside, and then you'll have to figure out who's playing in the slot between Stingley and William Jackson. It'll probably be Stingley, but I've seen William Jackson travel with a guy like Antonio Brown in the slot before, so I know he can play it. I know Ron and them want a physical guy up there in that Buffalo nickel position, but man, you got to worry about covering these receivers at this point. Like when offense is putting up 30, 40 points a game, I ain't worried about stopping the run as much as I'm worried about strapping down these receivers.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think Juice can play, man. We saw him actually. I was at training camp in Richmond last year, and he was. I'm not going to say he won his battles with Terry, but he was getting his fair share. That's why I was kind of disappointed with his season, but I know a lot of that was contributed to injuries and things like that. That concussion, he had a concussion like every 2 weeks. It was getting crazy.
That concussion problem, man.
Yeah. That might be something to monitor for sure. But hey, man, I appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much. This was an amazing interview. Is there anything that you want to let our fans know? Is there anything you want to plug? Anything we should be looking out for? Like you said, you ready to get back on them airwaves? Is there anything that we should be looking out for regarding Mr. Anthony Haynie?
You can definitely follow me on Twitter, Anthony Haynie 3. Haynie is spelled Haynie. Definitely tune into anything Team 980. Catch us on your airwaves, 980 AM radio, 9 to 12. And I'm definitely making my return, man. Like this past week, I was relatively quiet, but I talked to the powers that be, so expect to hear me.
Definitely, and I'll be looking out for it, man. I appreciate you for this time. Thank you guys for tuning into another 5 episode of the Bleeding BnG podcast. We'll be back with more content. Check us out. Check us out on YouTube. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Check us out on all podcast platforms. Peace.